Over the past few years, everything has changed. Where and how we work and live, the way we collaborate and measure success, and the emerging technologies we use to get it all done. Welcome to The Bridge. Join our host, Scott Kinka, in a series of discussions with top leaders in technology and learn about how they bridge their lives and their businesses into our hybrid work and AI-driven reality. Our hope is that their insights and experiences will help you on your journey in business and in life from who we were to who we are today. And maybe it'll get you better prepared for whatever comes next. The Bridge is a service of Bridgepointe Technologies, the nation's leading IT advisory firm. Bridgepointe helps business leaders evaluate, procure, implement, and manage technology and customer experience solutions with a focus on realizing sustainable results for business growth. And now here's your host, Scott Kinka.
When the economy falters and business decision-making slows, leaders typically look to cut costs. When a new technology starts to reach maturity, like AI, business owners go right to how that technology can help cut costs or remove jobs. It's 2023, 3 years removed from the start of the pandemic. What happens when we have the most discerning customers ever, with the highest expectations of service ever, and we combine that with a slowing economy? Unfortunately, some business owners are looking to cut the wrong costs, often in terms of frontline employees, support, customer service, etc. What if there was a different way? If you were like most people, you outsource your taxes every year because of expertise and efficiency. It's cheaper than taking the time to figure it out on your own, and more often than not, it produces a better result. So why then do we think about frontline positions and are afraid to outsource? Is it because so many people have done it poorly? Does the thought of outsourcing customer service or portions of it bring up failed visions of poorly prepared agents halfway across the world providing a substandard experience? BPO, or business process outsourcing, is not just for tech support agents anymore. It's for repetitive functions all over the business, from QA to data processing to correcting and, frankly, informing AI so that the business can actually realize some of the efficiencies that the technology promises over time. My guest on The Bridge this week is Dave McAbee. He's Bridgepointe's Vice President of Enterprise Solutions. We talk about business process outsourcing, all the myths. Hopefully we dispel some of them. And we hope to demonstrate that, like your taxes, you can actually get a better result for less money. Let's challenge our assumptions about outsourcing. Here's my chat with Dave McAbee.
Oh, well, hi, and welcome to The Bridge. My guest, special guest today on The Bridge, right, is Dave McAbee. He's one of our own. He's the Vice President of Enterprise Solutions at Bridgepointe CX. How are you, Dave? Good.
I'm good. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, having you, right? We're here at Channel Partners in Vegas, another special episode we got while we're here. You've been here for 24 hours, a little more than that?
A little more than 24 hours.
Okay.
I'm surprised I've got a voice right now.
Yeah.
After walking through smoky casinos and then having, 50 sidebar conversations on the way over here. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, it's good. It's good to have you with us. We're only a few days away from announcing that, we after the acquisition of BPT Solutions at the beginning of the year, that we've now rebranded the company as Bridgepointe CX. Mm-hmm. So officially all the way branded into the Bridgepointe family. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Exciting.
It's exciting. I think I got my 6th email address this morning.
In the shortest period of time.
So now I've got the BPT CX. I think that's my favorite one so far. No, it's great. And listen, Bridgepointe, and I'm not just saying this because I work for the company.
Yeah,
I should say this. It's a phenomenal group of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the culture, the cultural sort of mix between what PPT was and why I was attracted to them, and then what Bridgepointe is, it's so similar that it's just been really welcoming, and a lot of smart people, really driven people. So
perfect. So we're going to jump in. The reason that we're talking, the reason we have one of our own on the pod today, is we wanted to hop into a topic that's on everybody's minds, with the economy being where it is, which is BPO, or business process outsourcing. Mm-hmm. But before we do that, why don't you give us a little bit of background so our listeners can find out a little bit more
Sure.
or know a little bit more about you and where you come from.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me tell you the stuff that your listeners are care about, because they're not going to care about the fact that I've been a beekeeper in the past, or that I like to go scuba diving. We can.
That's okay. I mean, we should explore that stuff. You're a beekeeper?
Not now. I'm too busy for that right now. But I've been stung plenty of times, and it's fun. So in my career, I got into the CX space, and that's what kind of what we're in, right? Customer experience. About 12 or 13 years ago, I moved into it completely by chance. I was in software sales. I got a call from a friend who had been working for a company in the space selling cloud IVR, back when you had to explain to people what cloud meant.
Yeah.
Right. And he called me and said, "Hey, come over. It's great. We're having a lot of fun." And I said, "Well, explain it to me." And he said, "Well, we're, explain what they were doing." And I said, "Well, that sounds like automated phone systems. That sounds terrible."
Yeah.
and I said, no, it's customer experience. It's a whole industry. It's growing, And so anyway, so I went there, and it was, and truly I fell in love with the industry, because I can't think of many other industries, one, are changing so fast, but are also so important to the enterprise, because this is where the rubber meets the road for companies. This is where they talk to their customers. Anything you do in the CX space directly impacts revenue. So anyway, so I started there. I learned the business. I went from there into the contact center as a service, CCaaS, as we call it, space. Worked for a very small company that doesn't exist anymore for a couple of years. Yeah. And then I went to InContact.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's really interesting. When you work for a small company that has no budget and no marketing, you develop your craft.
Yeah.
Right? I had to be my own podcaster, and I had to be my own blog writer, and be my own marketing person, and all these things. And so when I got to InContact, they just made it into the Gartner Leader Quadrant.
Yeah.
And it was like putting fire to a barrel of kerosene or something like that. I mean, it was unbelievable. So I had a great career there. I was in sales. I always made President's Club, had a lot of fun, sold great deals, moved into a sales leadership role after the NICE acquisition.
Yeah.
So I started the first named accounts team for NICE, what is now called the CX1 product. And we had to learn how to go sell to the large enterprise. Yeah. And what we found out was you talk to the large enterprise differently than you talk to the mid-market, right? There's different assets they expect, different ways. And so anyway, built that. That expanded into what they called the key segment. I ran several different sales teams there. And then in 2021, I had a chance to leave there and go into the BPO space. Yeah. And that was really exciting. I didn't really know BPO all that well, to be honest. Yeah. That's not really why they wanted me. So one of the things that has been happening is these outsourcers, it's a very low margin business. And so for them to simply staff agents, right, to take customer care calls, they do a lot more than that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's a very low margin business. All of them have been trying to become more of a customer experience as a service kind of provider, where they own the entire customer journey. Yeah. And so they want the digital parts of the journey. They want to own the routing platform. They want the post-contact surveys and all of those things. And they, when they reached out to me, they said, we're looking at you because you don't come from the old BPO world. Yeah. So you're not coming in with that perspective of coming in to try to sell the project for just a 2% cheaper than the previous guy. Yeah. So I spent...
It's funny, we had some conversations about that on the pre-call.
That's right.
A few minutes ago. I got it.
And so I created a different go-to-market, and it was around the entire customer journey and around the entire customer experience. We changed the way we talked about it. We built a pre-sales organization that allowed us to do scoping and needs analysis the way you might do it in more of the software space. We built a channel organization, which didn't exist for them. And it was a great learning experience. Interestingly enough, the first partner that I went to go sign was PPT when when I did that, because I like those guys so much. Anyway, I had a great run there. And then I left there and I went to a startup in the BI and analytics space, also in CX. Yeah. So, and there I was responsible for opening up some new channels for them that they weren't selling into. So I've really enjoyed the fact, and it's been a happy coincidence. I didn't plan my career this way, but I went from sort of the IVR space where I was learning how to sell self-service, the cloud contact center space, BPO, BI and analytics. There's a lot of AI and other kinds of components that sort of got wrapped into that, to that journey. Along with things, all the ancillary technology, workforce management, quality, all those things. So I consider myself a little bit of a Swiss Army knife. You know, I know enough across sort of the entire CX spectrum to be, you know, effective for my customers.
Well, don't sell yourself short, because we wanted to do an episode that was focused on BPO, and everybody pointed at you as the guy. So we're going to get into that in a minute. But interesting background. Give us something. Give us a couple of the things that you think that people aren't interested in. Where do you live? A little bit of background. You know, kids, whatever. What do you got? Just give us.
Yeah. So born and raised in Virginia. Grew up in the Shenandoah Valley.
Okay.
I live in the DC metro. I always said I would never live there, because when you grow up in any other part of Virginia, and you fight that traffic, like, I'm never going to live there. It's never going to happen.
Anything worse than Northern Virginia traffic?
I don't know. Atlanta's pretty bad, but no. So I went there for school and said I would stay 5 years, and now it's almost 25 years later. I have a great wife. I have 3 kids. We have 2 dogs. You know, the whole thing.
Amazing.
Right? So very much a suburban life. So I travel as little as possible.
Yeah.
Because we're right in the thick of it. I've got a 12-year-old son, a 10-year-old little girl, and a 4-year-old little girl who's about to turn 30. So
got it. I have a couple of those.
Yeah.
They're not 4 anymore, though. But when they were at 4 years old, they were turning 30.
Yeah.
I completely get that. Well, okay, so that's awesome. And I appreciate that background. So, you know, the topic du jour here is really about BPO. And I sort of wanted to bring you on for a host of reasons. I think a lot of things are leading what has been a pretty a long history. Like, it's not like this BPO concept is anything new, but all of a sudden it's like it's new. It's getting lumped in with CX, getting lumped in with AI. It's getting lumped in with customer journey conversations, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I really was hoping to do was sort of explore that a little bit.
Sure.
You know, kind of what it is and why, and sort of step through those. So let's just start with, you know, Dave McAbee's definition of BPO, at least the way we think about BPO.
Yeah, well, the way we at Bridgepointe CX think about BPO is really, these are customer experience experts. These are organizations that are truly experts at their craft. And a lot of times, I hate to give a definition by defining it's negative. You know, like, let me tell you what BPO is not, right? Yeah. But in many ways, it's important to dispel some of the rumors or myths about BPO, right? So BPO is not necessarily a cost-cutting measure. It does allow you to be more operationally efficient and therefore achieve savings. Mm-hmm. But BPOs generally do CX better than a lot of organizations do internally. Mm-hmm. And there's a very good reason for that. The CX space is rapidly evolving. Not only are customer expectations for what the experience feels like when you work with them, constantly being ratcheted up. Mm-hmm. They want you to know them. They want you to be predictive. They want you to be proactive. They don't want to have to repeat themselves and have to re-authenticate a lot of times. I mean, and of course, they're so used to having easy access to these ubiquitous communication channels on our smartphones that they don't understand why companies can't do this easily. Yeah. Why can't you unknow me?
It's so easy on my iPhone.
Right.
Yeah. I get it.
And so there's that, and then the technology in our space is, I mean, you've been here, you've seen all these vendors, right? The technology is changing so quickly that for most companies, it is impractical for them to remain experts in this space. It's not core to their business either.
Yeah.
You know, if you're an insurance company, you need to be an expert at actuarial tables. You know, you don't need to be an expert at the latest evolution of GPT and how you're going to find a way to make that a commercially viable product.
Yeah.
So, but the BPOs, it is core to their business to be experts at that.
So, but who are the customers for BPO? I mean, the reality of it, as I think about contact centers, or I think about customer experience centers, I think about, some companies have them and some companies are them, right? Or at least, like, if you're in online sales, you honestly, you are a customer experience, as opposed to your point, if you're in, accounting or finance or what have you. Yeah, you might have a customer service arm or group, but it's not intrinsic to what you do. I mean, when you talk about outsourcing to people who do this for a living, it's not commonly outsourcing the entire function so much as it is amending skill set and talent and specialization into. Am I reading that right? Sort of. I mean,
so there's certainly a formula for deciding what types of interactions you send to an outsourcer as opposed to handle internally. But just to unwind that, because I think I probably didn't give you the definition you were looking for.
Yeah.
So a business process outsourcer is a company that takes any process that in a company, and it could be back office, it could be accounts receivable, it could be collections, it could be sales, customer service, many things that aren't necessarily customer facing.
Yeah.
Right? It can be forum moderation for your forum.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It could be training in AI, right? You think about every Tesla that's driving down the road right now has cameras mapping the world, but they're also identifying objects as they drive. The Tesla needs to know the difference between a telephone pole and a tree, and hopefully it knows what a child is, right? And all those things. And every now and again, it sees an object it doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And that picture goes somewhere for a human being to analyze it and label that. And it's training the AI. Well, that's a BPO somewhere that's doing that work.
Got it.
And that's true of any of those types of processes, right?
Okay.
We outsource our taxes every year. As a company, I'm sure, and certainly as an individual, I outsource my taxes.
Yeah.
So there's just things that companies, it makes more sense for them to have another firm do it because they're experts at it.
Got it.
Right?
Got it. Commonly, agents, though, or less so these days.
No, not. I mean, it's absolutely. I think the moneymaker for them is still agents in seats taking customer service kinds of calls.
Got it.
And companies that when they dip their toe into outsourcing, they will start with what they consider to be low skill, high volume calls. And generally what you find in contact centers is those high volume, low skill, redundant kinds of calls are the kinds of calls that the agents don't like to take.
So they're happy to amend.
They're happy. The agent, they have a lot of attrition in those roles, and they generally don't score very high from a CSAT or for those types of interactions. So that's usually the first indication of that could go to an outsourcer. It could probably save you some money and deliver a better result.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not just a cost-cutting measure.
Right.
But let me ask you the question. Is why all of a sudden is sort of the BPO acronym pushed back into the forefront of a lot of our conversations? Is it because of the economy? Is it because of kind of the changing roles, this technology? I mean, I'm sure the answer is a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Sort of what's driving the conversation to the forefront again?
Well, I love the fact that BPOs are evolving and the leaders in the space, right? So there's a Gartner quadrant for the BPOs, just like there is for everything else. And there's a handful, it's about 12 or 15 or so that kind of sit up there. And the leaders in the space are exactly what I described earlier. They are customer experience as a service kinds of providers. Yeah. They bring technology. They don't always use their own technology. A lot of customers still want to keep that. But they bring technology, they bring expertise, they bring consulting, and of course they provide agents. And they have all these practices that make their operations just a little more efficient than you could do, generally speaking, in your own corporate environment. But now, of course, the economy is driving a lot of, because what's happening today is, there's sort of a perfect storm of things happening, right? There's the economy has pulled back. There is some unemployment, but there's still all of these available jobs that are very difficult to fill. It's just very hard to staff contact center jobs. People don't seem to want those jobs, in the United States, for the most part, especially the lower skilled ones. I think what we're seeing is we're seeing a transformation where we're going to move away from these call center agents to being more highly skilled specialists. Because between BPO and AI, they're not going to need to take the routine kinds of calls anymore. And that'll be better for everybody because the humans sitting in those call centers will have more fulfilling jobs, higher pay rates. And it'll be better for the BPOs because they'll pick up all that traffic, the things that they're really good at. Yeah. But anyway, so companies they've got all this economic pressure, but the phone isn't ringing less than it was before.
Completely.
Right?
And in fact, to get past maybe the economic pressures, they needed to ring more in a lot of ways.
Right.
So if it's, and you mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily a cost savings thing often, but we did tie it to the economy. So what is it? Is it just having the flexibility to be able to scale up, scale down? Like, how do commitments work in these kind of scenarios?
Yeah. So the commitments are a big part of it. BPOs by and large are measured upon by their performance against your service levels, your SLAs.
Okay.
So you will establish in an agreement with a BPO what your typical service levels are. And there may be requirements around customer satisfaction scores, certainly handle time, first contact resolution, a number of different typical KPIs in a contact center. And these contracts generally have teeth in them so that if the BPO fails to perform routinely in a given area, the company has a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
They can simply reduce the amount of volume going to that BPO, or they can pull it back completely.
Got it. So it's usage based in that regard.
Right.
And are these agents oftentimes dedicated to a particular customer? Or,
Yeah,
I keep going back to agents, and I know that you've broadened the
and that's okay.
point, but let's just say the human.
Right.
Are they typically dedicated to a function, or are they oftentimes sharing across a handful of customers?
The sharing, you see a little less of that these days.
Okay.
Mostly because we're now moving to this age where these BPOs truly are CX experts, and they do a very good job of those agents becoming part of the company's culture, if that makes sense. So if you walk a modern contact center of a BPO, you will find that even if you may have a floor of 300 agents or something, pockets of agents supporting different accounts. But in that area where they're working, they will have all the banners for that company. They'll be wearing the company shirts. They'll attend all the all hands meetings. They will, companies, if they're smart, will try to really make them part of their culture. And so because of that, it's very hard to have that be a shared resource.
Got it.
Amongst lots of different accounts.
But the win there, I mean, we talked about, hey, there's a lot of technology here. Hey, it's hard to be good at everything, right? Hey, it's, we talked about flexibility quite a little bit. Let's hone down on that one a little bit, because I think, we've already established companies don't go, hey, we've got, I'll pick a round number, 500 people in our contact center. Let's send 500 people outside to a BPO, right? I mean, they're picking a business function. Maybe it's an alternative language queue. Maybe it's an overnight, Those all fall inside the flexibility outside of just the fiscal flexibility.
So you certainly have hours of operation types of issues. Okay. So you need follow the sun or 24/7 support. Okay. That overnight shift is notoriously difficult to staff.
Yeah.
You also have seasonal volumes. In the health insurance space, you have open enrollment period. Yeah. Right. And so they need to staff up 3x, 4x for that period, and then pull back to their normal staffing levels.
Got it.
If you're a retailer of flower arrangements, you've got two really busy times of the year, right?
Yeah.
You can probably guess what those are. Right. And you go from 200 agents to 2,000 agents almost overnight.
Sure.
But for a very temporary period of time.
Yeah.
And so companies, laying off agents doesn't look good. It's not a good look, and you make the news when you have to lay off.
That's what I was going to say. I could imagine as a publicly traded business, as an example, maybe just a matter of practice of having a portion of them in BPO, if only to say when we have to scale back, that's not noteworthy from a news perspective.
That's right.
It doesn't qualify as a layoff.
And a lot of companies learned that lesson during the pandemic, by the way.
Yeah. So they stayed staffed down and didn't staff back up FTE, right. Full time, so that they could maintain.
Yeah. Because you sort of, there's this maturity spectrum that happens when companies sort of start to adopt an outsourcing model. And typically they start with, we'll try something relatively low risk, right? And then as that works, they will expand that, and they may expand it to more than one BPO. And then they'll do something we call a champion challenger model, where you may have your incumbent vendor who you prefer, but you want to have a challenger as well, because one, it creates a nice friendly competition between the two BPOs. You measure their performance month in, month out.
Okay.
That challenger BPO, that B player, gets the opportunity to earn more volume, which can be very significant from a revenue perspective for them if they outperform from a KPI perspective every month. So that would be the next level for maturity model.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. So, and we could probably spend the next 20 minutes unpacking that one.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not go all the way there right now, but I think it does. Let's bring that back though. So, that's complicated to do. So I think, if a listener here was thinking to themselves, okay, I get the financial flexibility. I get the specialist skill set. I get, okay, I'm willing to try that. I want to try this jacket on. Let me see. It's not that easy. So like you said earlier, you hate to define something by saying what it's not, but I do think, we're selling on the concept here a little bit. Let's recognize a little bit of the complexity. If somebody does BPO themselves and they do it poorly, what does that What are the things that usually break? Where are the eggs getting broken?
So generally speaking, it's just inefficient and it costs them more than it should. And they get poor performance. And that's because there are, I don't know the number, there are thousands probably of outsourcers out there. And I can't imagine trying to go to market by just doing a Google search for BPO. Yeah. Because you'd find the top few right away at the very top of your hit. But you probably wouldn't find the one that's right for you right away. I mean, BPOs come in all shapes and sizes, right? There are the very, very large that have 300, 400,000 agents globally. Yeah. And they're very mature practices, but they're not really interested in working down market in small 20, 30 seat kinds of opportunities. There are boutique, very good BPOs that have 2,000, 3,000 seats and have a global presence. And a 30-seat contact center, a 50-seat contact center is significant to them. And you would be a significant customer to them if that were the size of your operation. Yeah. But I don't know how you find that if you were to go it alone. So, not even the worst case scenario, but a very common scenario would be you go with the wrong BPO that's just not the right match for you, and you don't get the care and feeding that you want. And and by the way, you don't know what to expect from them from a reporting perspective, from SLAs, all those things. If there's a whole vendor management component that we do very well at Bridgepointe CX, by the way, and we teach our customers this, by the way. One of our practices in our BPO practice is to teach them how to manage that type of relationship.
Got it. And then there's also all of the thinking around, when people are in your four walls, it's very, you learn by tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
When they're not, there's got to be a strategy around that.
That's right.
I mean, is there, talk a little bit about some of the challenges for sort of the first BPO project that businesses face, having not really dealt with it before.
I think that what you get is you have a very difficult time doing that knowledge transfer of this is how we operate our business. Because as you said, it's tribal knowledge. A lot of the practices they have in place to operate day to day were things that evolved over time by trial and error.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily based on best practices. It doesn't mean they're wrong, because most best practices were all trial and error at some point.
Sure.
And you figured out the right way by making lots of mistakes along the way. It's just making mistakes in this world is expensive. Yeah. You don't want to make them if you don't have to. And the sad part is you don't have to make these mistakes because there's experts out there to help you. But what it looks like is a prolonged period of trying to figure out how to communicate our operations to the BPO. So if you think about in a contact center, you've got technology, you've got all your call queues and all your things sort of mapped out. Yeah. You have your agents and their different queues, skill groups, the teams they're on, how you coach them, how you develop them, how you score their performance. And you may have never documented any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Or sort of casually.
They learned over the shoulder, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So now how do I give you that as a BPO and say, here's our operation, we want you to do it this way. So it seems to me that would be one of the pitfalls, right? Of trying to go it alone.
Got it.
To figure that stuff out.
And your recommendation in those cases is to work with a consultant who can help you do it right.
Right. Well, because anytime we consult or a good consultancy consults, the first thing we do is teach you how to document all your processes.
Yeah.
Let's document everything you've got. And if we find things that are glaringly wrong, let's fix those.
Yeah.
But now, not only do you have an asset that you can continue to use and iterate on, but it makes it a very simple process to take it to not only that BPO, but you have a lot of flexibility. Because if that BPO, for some reason, decides that they're moving out of that market, they don't want to work on that vertical anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Then it's very easy for you to transport that to somebody else.
When we have similar conversations with customers who, are thinking the magic AI bot's going to start answering their calls for them, right? And the next conversation is, well, where's your knowledge management? And they're like, well, what's knowledge management? I'm like, well, there are no bots in your future until we get that documented. So, I mean, in some ways, right, AI needs something to learn off of. Documenting the process to go to BPO is maybe in some ways a stair step into having documented processes and moving on from tribal knowledge to be able to maybe over time inform AI or inform bots or something like that.
The side effect is that you improve all of these processes internally, right?
100%.
You really can't iterate and improve without documenting where you are.
Yeah.
So
super interesting. I mean, there's been a lot in all of this. Just words of wisdom for somebody who's been here. I mean, if you've got a customer, you're in IT, we're talking to IT leaders out there, we're talking to contact center leaders, and they're thinking to themselves, okay, what Dave shared was interesting to me. I was already considering it. where to start? Like, what should they really be thinking about before they engage a consultant like Bridgepointe CX or someone else?
Well, I think that they just have to understand what their pressures are, first of all, right?
Okay.
Are they being asked to do more with less, right? Do they find that they routinely perform poorly across certain types we call them interaction types, because we don't just handle calls anymore, right? It's not a call center. So when I say interactions, I'm referring to everything from chat, social media, SMS,
100%.
email, all those things. So what are the interaction types that you generally do poorly with?
Yeah.
Right? And start to evaluate that. But I don't think it's ever premature to engage a consultant. Because it's a very low risk conversation to simply say, listen, I'm not sure about this world. Educate me a little bit.
Yeah.
And ask me a few questions, and let's figure out if there's something that we're doing that could be improved on. Completely. Because remember, as I said at the outset, it's not just contact center agents sitting in seats. While that is what we commonly think of, there are any number of things. We're helping one company right now that has a software as a service product, and they're really struggling to staff for implementation managers and client success people. We're going to take that to an outsourcer. We're going to help them with that.
Got it.
And that is not there. Now, when you do that, it's not an agent in a call center. I'm not going to measure them by the same KPIs. So how do I measure their performance? But that's okay, because the BPOs understand that, right? They know that we're measuring them differently, and they were completely prepared to have that conversation.
Well, in a lot of ways, they're in the business of metrics management, right? So they can not only, be governed, if you will, by the metrics in that other role, that they're trying to move into a BPO, but frankly, lean on the BPO to help them determine what the metrics are in some ways on how to measure them.
And think of it like this, too. This is funny, Kinka. If I were to take a subset of my agents and move into a BPO, and I'm keeping agents in-house as well, I'm already in a champion challenger model, right?
Completely, right? Because your outsourcers
is the
challenger right out of the chute.
Right. And
we do better overseas or offshore or near shore or whatever it happens to be. Okay.
And it's a great litmus test to see how are we performing internally compared to how, an expert would do it.
Fantastic. Before we close, I want to ask one question that I probably should have asked before that, but I'm going to go back and do it because it sort of came out of my mouth accidentally when we were talking about the champion challenger model. I think people have a tendency to think that this automatically means shipping to the Philippines or shipping to. Let's just talk about that for 1 minute. I mean, that's not the only way to do this.
No, and I'm so glad you said that because, that's the thing I wanted to say at the outset when I said they're the myths right around BPO is that it's not offshoring at all. There are three ways to do it. There's offshore, there's nearshore, and there's, frankly, there's lots more than three ways. There's onshore. But, you can onshore outsource with a company that can provide a brick and mortar type of, or they can do work at home agents. There are lots of BPOs now that are doing work at home, sort of gig economy, Uber style services, and their performance is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is even with onshore, where the rates are quite a bit higher, right? Because you're paying, a domestic employee in the United States, U.S. citizen, you will still see a savings. And you might see the savings in nothing more than just operational efficiency. Yeah. The typical contact center runs, their agent utilization rate, which is the percentage of the time that the agent, when they're clocked in, are actually in productive work. Right? Yeah. Their agent utilization rate is, I'm scared to say a number because, it changes all the time. Let's say it's 65%, right? That's a pretty decent agent utilization rate for sort of a captive in-house contact center. BPOs will routinely run 75%. And so even if, because of they've got established long-standing workforce management practices and all these other best practices. So even at the same rates, I can just do the work with a few less people. Yeah. So I will automatically save you money just in that way.
Got it. Makes perfect sense.
But anyway, so that's onshore. And then nearshore would be your sort of offshore, but within U.S. time zones.
Yeah.
And you get great U.S., great U.S. cultural alignment as well as great English. Yeah. Very, very motivated people who, for them, these are great jobs.
Yeah.
And then offshore is, you said Philippines, that's a very common one.
Yeah. Where this is a great job, to be clear.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
And that ultimately leads to, happy agents create happy customers in a lot of ways, right?
And a lot less
if you do it right.
A lot less attrition in those places because it is such a good job. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. So there was a lot there. We don't want to inundate our listeners beyond that, but I do want to hit you with a couple fun questions because we do it every time. These don't need to be, anything dramatic. But I ask for a shameless prediction. 18 to 24 months. It doesn't need to be in tech or the topic we were talking about here. It could be about sports or entertainment or political, but it could also be about the industry that we just talked about. Whatever you feel like is.
I'll stick with the industry only because everything else I say would just be too controversial. So whatever.
You're that guy.
Yeah.
So is Gene behind the camera over there. So that's why I don't ask him that question.
That's why he and I get along so well.
Yeah, right. I got you.
So I think what you're going to see is in the next 18 months, a true adoption of a scenario where you have an AI-enabled super agent. Okay? So you're going to call into a contact center 18 months from now, and you're going to have an agent that knows you, knows exactly why you're calling, has your answer right away. It's going to be shocking how good the experience is and how fast it is. And it will be very natural and human.
Yeah.
Because you're talking to a human. But what you don't know is there's AI listening that is finding the right answer, serving up the right information in a very digestible, usable way for the agent.
Yeah.
So we're right on the cusp of that now. There's lots of technologies that attempt to do it now. Very few have fully adopted it and embraced it.
Yeah.
But it's mainstreaming very quickly.
Fantastic. Okay, I got that. All right, now for the fun.
Okay.
All right.
That wasn't the fun one.
No, that wasn't the fun one. Well, you could have gone fun with it if you chose to go political or sports or something along those lines. The answer sounded a lot better than when you initially started the statement because it felt like you were going RoboCop level. You were like, AI-powered agents. You were like ready for all that. But let's assume that happens, all right? So I used to say zombie apocalypse or the next pandemic, but in this case, we'll say the robots take over, dystopian future. You've got one app functioning on your phone at that point. What's the one app that works? What's indispensable at that moment? And make sure you're answering it in some way based on the fact that we are in a dystopian future at that point. So it's got to be, well thought out.
Yeah, and my phone doesn't have an EMP app, right? So I can't just zap all the robots.
If it were, it would be wise.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Wow. One app. It would have to be the Find My app, so I would know where my kids are and where my wife is.
You know what? That's a really good answer. Stick an air tag on the kids, right?
Yeah. And the dogs. Why not?
Right? Yeah, right around here. Why haven't they done that yet? Or maybe they do. Dog collars with the little spot for to put the air tag in it. That's genius.
Yeah.
You might have just invented something. All right. Last but not least, just tell us something. What's on your end table right now? At reading, or maybe it's your reader. Like, do you have something that, again, doesn't need to be necessarily business focused, but people hung this long hearing you talk, so maybe they want to know what you're reading.
Man, I'm going to sound so nerdy for saying this. I am trying to slog my way through the Brothers Karamazov right now.
Okay.
Which is Dostoevsky, and it's that thick. And I keep hearing what a good book it is, and I'm hoping it gets good.
How many pages into this much?
I'm about this far into this much.
Okay.
No, it is very interesting. It's interesting to delve into the Russian mind and because I was a big Crime and Punishment fan.
Yeah.
I like literature. I like books that challenge my thinking.
You're such a Renaissance man. Look at you.
I don't think that's true, but so that's what's on my nightstand, and it's very slow. I'm the guy that has 6 books stacked up. Because my ADHD kicks in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put that one down and pick that one up for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Are you like, you try to bang a chapter out before you
Usually
hit the rack?
That's what I need. If I can't fall asleep, I'll bang a chapter out of something. And it'll go from that to a biography or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. I have to break the habit of like looking at my phone until I go to sleep. That's the thing.
It's such a bad habit.
It is a terrible habit.
Yeah. And I do the same thing. And then you don't sleep for hours. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's indeed. Well, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did this. We got shuffled around multiple rooms. We finally made it happen.
Musical rooms.
The good news is there's enough rooms in a hotel of this size for us to figure it out, and we did. So I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to do this. We've been talking about this for a little while.
Yeah.
Again, Dave McAbee, who is our Vice President of Enterprise Solutions for Bridgepointe CX. He and all of our teams in Bridgepointe CX are here to help you have these conversations. And we're looking forward not only to helping you on those conversations, but having you listen to us again on another episode of The Bridge. Thanks so much for your time. Listen, if you made it this far, there must have been some good content, or you're just a fan or a relative of mine. In either case, we appreciate you spending your most valuable asset with us, your time. We don't take that lightly.
We'd also like to say one more time that we are appreciative of Bridgepointe Technologies and their belief and sponsorship of this show. We hope that if you or someone you know is thinking about your company's digital transformation or simply the next IT project that you may not have the resources, budget, or time to get to, I'm sure that Bridgepointe, one of the country's fastest growing technology advisory and procurement firms, can help. Check out Bridgepointe at bridgepointetechnologies.com. Don't forget the E on Bridgepointe, or simply reach out to me at Skinka, SKINKA, at BPT3, Also, take a minute, please, if you would, to give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. It helps give us the visibility to reach other people like you. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bridge. I am Scott Kinka, and until next time, there's a lot of noise out there. In business and in life, do what you can to be the signal. Thanks.